Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarnished Bronze. We're here on the Cult Comic Corner, and we are going to take a look at Unwholesome Love, the new comic by Charles Burns. Now, I must admit, my first Charles Burns is Black Hole, which definitely sets a very high bar. It's perhaps going to be covered later on in our Cult Comic Corner, but nonetheless, going more recently, 2024 has been a hell of a year for Burns, and he has done a lot of work, notably Unwholesome Love, as well as a more full-length graphic novel, Final Cut, which I really, really hope is a adaptation of the Pink Floyd album of the same name, the much maligned Pink Floyd album of the same name, which I must say I very much enjoy. And so he's also got a book out by Fantagraphics called Comics with a K and an X, which is all of these covers that he's drawn for fake romance comics. So I hope that he got the idea and decided to make a full-length story because we get issue 23 here. And if you look at the copyright indicia in this issue, it has some fantastic stuff in there. And that's, you know, always a good read if people are smuggling good things and all that copyright information. So hopefully it spurred him on to make this full comic, which is, a lot more gratifying maybe than a book of the covers. Although I think we'll definitely cover some of those covers in Cult Comics Corner in the future. Anyway, in this first sort of episode in this issue, we do cover these great little splash pages, these opening pages, these really harken back to those romance comics. We've got this man in the shadows, and he's looking out, and this woman here is just distraught, and he really sells it. Great tears, great cartooning, great captioning, real emotion. And he is very, very good at these silhouettes. You never get a clear look at the man in this. And I'm not sure, we'll sort of have a little mini debate at the end. I'm not sure if this is the same man or a different man, or even if it is a man, it might be a woman, or it might be one of the people who is interacting with these characters at the very end. We don't know this great ambiguity that starts off right on this second page here, but he's selling the emotional turmoil of the whole thing. That our protagonist here has been going on these night walks into this park, and we can never quite get if this park is real or if it's kind of like the TARDIS. It has different houses and different areas and different parts to it. You can never maybe get to the same place twice. Yeah, this is a real subversion of reality where our protagonists made up, and she's called the Love Doll. So that will come back again and again. It's the title of this first episode, but this man, this elusive sort of man, calls her the Love Doll, and they meet up in this thing, and she clears her head, and one thing leads to another, and she's a little bit ambivalent as to whether it was a positive experience, but in the end, she does admit that she liked it a lot. And once again, there's nothing really super explicit about this stuff. It's all, we don't really know what's happening. We don't really know when it's set. It seems like it's set in the 50s or the 60s, like these classical romance sort of comics. But the love doll is very agonized over this, so this happens again and again and again, and the melodrama really hits heavy. It seems like there's an accident that's befallen both her and perhaps the male paramour. You can notice the pill bottles on here, so she's really put through the emotional ringer, and I think that Burns is very, very good at selling this to us just through the emotion. And the captions, I will say, play fair. You're not meant to be sort of, it is meant to be a little bit obscured, the whole state of reality versus dreams, and what is actual canonically real is a little bit obscure, and I think that that makes multiple readings and multiple interpretations of this. And we've got our protagonist here, and we don't actually know who is in this picture here all bandaged up, but I kind of think in this issue that, or in this section of it, that that is the male protagonist that's been this horrendous accident. She's obviously been hurt and is on the painkillers, and he maybe is being operated on. And that's where we end the first story. And everything that's kind of uncanny or surreal or subversive as far as like dead reality or deadline reality is what we see. It is kind of done through these really great captionings. And in First Lady, which is the second story, we get a bit of a shake up. So this time the main protagonist is a blonde, and she's being spied on by her roommate or her housemate. Here it seems like another college scenario in the 1950s, 1960s. And Burns here does a really fun job between examining that fine line between young female friendship and young female rivalry. And he bridges that sort of, it's two sides of the same coin with these two people. One of them is kind of like trying to say that the other one is a bit of a frump, while the other one is saying that they may be slatternly in their interactions. And then they're told, oh, maybe you're just jealous, and so on and so forth. But then we get into this stuff that gets a little bit, we get some sapphic details between this pair, which kind of changes the complexion of how the dark-haired one was looking at the blonde through that window. And then one of the main protagonists in this one is kind of dismissive of that, saying, "Oh, that's, I can't believe that you would remember all that stuff." And so here, our woman who's looking out the window with jealousy decides that she's going to go off and clear her head with a drive. So we get these motifs. People are clearing their head walking through the park. People are clearing their head walking or driving through the forest here, or the woodlands, and it ends up in this horrendous crash. And so we've got our sort of motif of these crashes which keep on occurring. So the first one was just referred to. This one you see documented, and it's kind of ambiguous. It's kind of a fun little guessing game as to, is this the crash that we're referring to in the first one, and you thought it was the man, but now it's actually this lady. It's kind of, we're keeping it very obscure, and I kind of like that. Like I said, you could read this multiple times and interpret this multiple ways. And it seems like here she is, and she's getting woken up, and the nurse and the doctor are quite concerned about her, and they think she's been out of it for a little while. Just reading between the lines here. So uh, our pair though are then reunited. So she goes into the crash, she gets recovered, and then she's shocked that she's able to be picked up here by the person who she was unsure of if they remembered all that stuff from back in the day. Um, so it's kind of, he does really well. It's kind of incredibly detailed, and yet I've read this a few times and I'm just astonished at little things that I pick up on the multiple readings. So although this sort of seems like three different stories, it's kind of weaving in and out, and it does do a really good job of weaving in and out. And that weave is brought together in this last issue called Smash Up, where we both have the car motif, and we also have these multiple characters who we don't know quite their exact relationships with each other. And so Smash Up is a smash up both physically as far as the car crashes, and emotionally and character wise as far as what characters are going to interact with each other. And one of my favorite comics is actually Love and Rockets, and I think Jaime is the person who's really into the car culture and the death of Speedy and so on and so forth. But these car issues are really good from Charles Burns. He can really do it up to that high echelon or that high bar that Jaime has created for everyone who's doing this kind of thing. And now our dark-haired protagonist is getting really upset that she's spying on her walks now with her mysterious male paramour is doing the same thing in the park and calling other people the love doll. And so that really rubs her up the wrong way. And it shakes up that standard narrative. And so the other kind of thing is that she keeps persisting with meeting up with these people, and the paramour is not really interested. He just doesn't want any of the kinky stuff, and he likes doing it the old-fashioned, normal way. And now I think that this is both a comment on comics and a comment on these romance comics, and also a comment on the characters going on here. So I like to kind of think that the old-fashioned normal way is to resolve these things in the story. The unfashionable way is to perhaps leave a little bit of thought, like and engage the reader. Some of the best works of fiction out there are things that kind of engage us in a way that we're not sure of the finale, we're not sure of the resolution. It's up to us to kind of make a decision and really get at what this work means or represents. And that's where you've got your reader engaging with the text. And so Charles Burns is definitely great at getting the reader to engage with the text or with the comic in this case. And just aside from all of that highfalutin stuff, we are just getting some fantastic images on the page. Like these look like they're the great cartoon strips from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. She's and the captioning is melodramatic, but it's not overwhelming, and it's pretty good for what it is. You We also get an intermingling. Like I said, this is a smash up of both the physical proportion and the character proportion. So we're getting the paramour now, who once again is always in these beautiful silhouettes, um, being engaged with this other different lady in their night walks. And yeah, the love doll bombshell just really shakes things up. And then again, we get into this sort of driving off in a rage, recurring motif. And again, just horrendous crash. And our protagonist, I'm not sure if this is the protagonist from the original story, but it seems like it. But our protagonist from both the second and the first story is here. They're all bandaged up. It's the same bandages from the photo in the first one. There's just so many things that you can go from here. And she's called Little Miss Love Doll. And so we don't know if this has happened multiple times. There's a lot of great, I'm not going to spoil the final sort of reveals, but there's a lot of things that you can put into this story that make it a deeply rich, rewarding reading experience. I love this. It's one of the rare things that's both direct and surreal, which is kind of a funny combination to mention, but it's direct in that the cartooning isn't being deliberately opaque. It's the story which is opaque, and you kind of puzzle it out later. And it's he's Burns is obviously having fun with an idiom that he's kind of like, it's a relatively antiquated idiom, the romance comic, but he's subverting it quite nicely, and it's definitely worth a read. I managed to find this on some online outlets. I think it's pretty readily available. I don't think it's some sort of special edition, but it is just a great comic to have in your collection. very readable, and the art is just out of this world. So hopefully we'll see some more episodes of Unwholesome Love. I know that this is meant to be episode 23 if you read the letters columns. The letters columns are worth the price of admission. The subject matter probably isn't really for this for YouTube, but highest recommendation. Really do yourself a favor and get out there and get Unwholesome Love. And if you want more of this kind of off the beaten track um, comics content from Tarnished Bronze, well, like, follow, subscribe, and look out for the Cult Comics Corner. And that'll be all from us.